large tropical storm Wutip dumping heavy rains over Vietnam. So the Western Pacific finally has its first tropical cyclone, and although it's not looking quite as good right now as it did earlier, it does have a decent circulation and appears to be intensifying. The centre of the storm is currently located near 17.2 north, 110.8 degrees east. As of 8 p.m. China Standard Time, and of course Hong Kong time as well, 7 p.m. in Vietnam. 45 mile per hour winds, which is near 70 kilometers per hour, and an estimated pressure of 991 millibars, although it is deepening. Current movement west-northwestwards at 18 miles per hour or 29 kilometers per hour, so pretty brisk as it steers closer towards the coast of Vietnam. So here it is right now displayed on the map, with its wind field extending quite far to the southerly sectors, mainly due to a massive chunky band on that southern side, which is still partly monsoonal. A yellow typhoon warning is in effect right now for Hainan, and a blue typhoon warning extending further northwards through the Lisu Peninsula and along the coast of Guangdong eastwards to Yangjiang. It is currently 153 kilometers from the closest settlement, Dadun, on the southeastern tip of Hainan, 178 from Sanya, and 307 from Da Nang, the closest point, the closest significant area in Vietnam that would be. 315 from Haikou, and 671 from the Vietnamese capital, Hanoi. Well, the storm will be getting closer to those areas and is expected to carry with it a large, expansive flooding threat, particularly if it stalls as it starts to recurve around or over Hainan. Rainfall could reach 800 millimeters in some areas, causing major flash flooding. Vietnam and Guangdong should also expect rapid rainfall, leaving the flash flooding in places. Not always the final amount is important. It sometimes depends on the actual rain rate from significant showers as they move through, can cause some significant flash flooding. So over the next few days, looking towards the wind field there and the expected track of the storm, pretty much taking it over Hainan there, but rounding the western coastline. Still not great confidence in just how far west it's going to go. It could end up being entirely over the Gulf of Tonkin as it recurves northeastwards, but pretty much where it's going later on in the forecast is a given. The main question will be how fast it actually does that recurvature, and by the time it gets to the eastern coast of China, it will be completely gone. So 45 mile per hour winds right now with decent support, although ADT satellite estimates are flagging very much. JMA and 413 estimate currently at 45 miles per hour. JTWC also on the back foot there, currently at 35 miles per hour. We do think it is stronger. This is the JMA cone as well, which is pretty much in line with what our forecast is showing, maybe just a notch further eastwards for the final landfall in China there, but eventually moving off towards the northeast. Pretty decent agreement, and they have a very large area of 30 knot winds there, that yellow circle. There's the JTWC forecast cone, and they expect it to become a tropical storm very soon, may even do so by the time this update goes out, because they will be due to update their back end figures shortly. Well, this is the GFS model over the next few days then, taking it to typhoon status. I think it has a minimum pressure around 980 by the time it peaks, although given the storm's large size, to be honest, that probably wouldn't correlate to a typhoon. I think we would be expecting a mid to high end tropical storm from this, probably higher towards typhoon status, but not quite. But GFS still hanging in there with a typhoon forecast, and it's certainly possible. Takes it a bit further north there, and then on towards the northeast, was being steered quite conclusively towards the end after it makes landfall. Look at all that rainfall on the southern side over the next few hours here, and then continuing onward through the next couple of days as the storm consolidates on the other side of Hainan and really throws some huge amounts of rain, very high rain rates along the western side of the storm when it makes that final landfall in southern China near the Vietnamese border right there. But in the meantime, at the very early onset there, you can see huge amounts of rainfall over central and coastal Vietnam, and then the storm, of course, dragging itself upwards through that coastal region and then off into a massive frontal system, which ends up petering out really before it properly gets to Japan. Look at the rainfall accumulations then over the next 7 days, and we are expecting substantial rainfall amounts. If the storm does track a little bit further eastward, then that rainfall would be translated over the western coast of Hainan, and there's some really high rainfall amounts there, getting up towards 800 millimeters as mentioned. Right now though, the forecast is a little bit lower because the storm looks like it might be throwing most of its rainfall over water, but those higher amounts are very close. Incidentally, over Taiwan, some really high amounts of rainfall there as well, up to 700 millimeters as a byproduct really of this storm, along with Invest 94W, which is out near the Philippines, which could also tangle and produce very high rainfall amounts. Certainly the energy is there when we look at the sea surface temperatures, around 29 pushing 30 degrees Celsius, and these numbers read a little bit low actually, so it's probably warmer than that. Some of those land temperatures there, of course, quite hot, and that is even at this point in time, which is well after the maximum daytime temperature, up to around 32-33 degrees in Hanoi still at this time, or at least a little bit earlier on when this model showed that projection. But the point is, very warm sea surface temperatures. Here's the satellite imagery looking at rapid scan from Himawari, and you can see how the storm has been progressing. Huge cloud tops pushing through the coastal regions of Vietnam there, around the Da Nang area in particular. A wider shot showing you the general picture. It is quite sloppy, it has to be said. Eastern side looking very bare, as a matter of fact. Dry air really hampering things on its eastern side, which could be a sign maybe that the storm may not get as strong as projected. We'll have to see if it fights back with more convective tops throughout the night tonight. But also some significant rainfall there over southern China already from the northern side, sort of not quite associated with Wutip itself, but being pushed away northwards. And here's a closer view from the 413 website. You can take a look at this imagery anytime as well. West-northwesterly movement. The convection not quite as good as it was earlier, but again waiting to see if it throws up some more, and obviously very heavy rainfall along that western and southwestern side right now, pushing through Vietnam. A very wet night there at this point, and the biggest concern for flash flooding absolutely right now is there. Of course, wind speeds will be getting up there as well, possibly to tropical storm force throughout the night tonight, and then later on we could start to see some strong tropical storm force winds along the southwestern coast of Hainan, maybe even getting to typhoon force if this storm is going to actually get to that strength. Looking at radar as well, another view of the complexion of that rainfall under those big bands, and really is throwing some very intense amounts of rain over some of those areas along the coast marked in red on that radar. And here's a wide shot on a new type of imagery that we've got on the 413 website as well. You can check that out, and showing you everything that's going on there. A real mess in the Western Pacific, and 94W on the other side. Looking around the world at the Eastern Pacific, of course, woke us all up in the Northern Hemisphere. There are already 3 storms in. Cosme has just died off, and all of them are now gone. So Alvin, Barbara, and Cosme are what we've had so far in the Eastern Pacific. And in the Westpac now, we've got Wutip, and we've got that other system, which we've marked F6, that's 94W.